The information provided on this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended as medical or professional advice. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional before starting any new exercise or nutrition program. The opinions expressed by the host and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the podcast or its sponsors. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Talk Your Abs Off. I am Abby Clapper, and today I am joined by Jenn McGuire. I met Jenn in the Dunedin Women's Running Group that I went to one time, and I met Jenn that one time, and we've stayed connected. So I'm so excited to have you here with me today, Jenn.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm really excited to spend some time with you too. And I'm really glad that you came to that run group that day because we actually spoke for a really long time. And I think we connected on a lot of things. And so it was really nice just to kind of form that connection. Maybe you'll come back again. We'll welcome you back.
Yes, I would love to. And actually, what I remember about you is I got lost. I was getting lost on my way back, and you are the one who helped point me back to where we were supposed to go. So I'm forever grateful for that, or I would still be running around Dunedin to this day. Jenn, would you mind just telling us a little bit about who you are and what you do right now, both in your career and outside of that too?
Yeah, so my name is Jenn, and I currently live in Dunedin, Florida, but I'm originally from New York. My husband, Mike, and I moved down here about 5 years ago, and we have a miniature dachshund. She's 3.5. Her name is Dr. Wilhelmina Poopenstein.
Love that.
And for my day job, I am a payroll and benefits administrator, and I do accounts payable for a third-party logistics company that's located in Denver. And fortunately, I work from home, and I have a lot of flexibility in there to be able to now pursue my newest venture, which is run coaching. So I'm really excited about that.
That is awesome. I was so excited for you when I saw that you were finally launching your business in run coaching. Because I know the last time that we spoke, you were still going through the certification process. So it's so exciting that you're off and running with it. Before we get too much into that, would you mind sharing about your own health and wellness journey, running journey, and how that got you to where you are now?
Yeah, so my intro to kind of the wellness space started about 18 years ago. At the time, I was a bartender and a server and not living the healthiest lifestyle. And then the restaurant said that they were closing. So I figured I probably don't really want to be in the restaurant anymore. Didn't know what I wanted to do, but saw a job opening at Jenny Craig as a weight loss consultant. And so I thought I want to lose weight, so that would be good. Part of my role in the restaurant was to train new employees. So I'm thinking maybe I can convince them that skill will translate to teaching and training, people that want to lose weight. And so I applied thinking it was a long shot, and I got the job, luckily. Went through the program myself and lost 35 pounds.
Wow. And
then I did it with mostly diet alone and rarely any exercise, which is a luxury of being in your 20s. Yeah. So I couldn't do that now, but I knew that if I wanted to maintain it, I needed to do something and get more active. And so I started running, and it took probably about 5 or 6 years before I ran my first official race. But in 2012, I did a 5K and just loved it. Everything about the race experience, how I felt during it, after it, the whole thing. Then continued from there just to run several different distances up to the marathon. I ended up leaving Jenny Craig about 8 years ago. And the one thing I missed a lot was just kind of that one-on-one interaction with clients and working with them. So I'm really excited to get back into that now.
Yeah. And remind me, Jenny Craig, what kind of nutrition plan does that follow?
So the Jenny Craig plan actually was pretty balanced. It was a lower calorie based plan, 50 to 60% carbs, 20 to 30% protein and fat. And it really, in my opinion, focused on kind of no bad foods, just eating within, moderation and within kind of those caloric guidelines. And then they did improve or talk about improving your strength training as well.
Wow. Okay. So that actually doesn't sound too terrible. I was expecting something more like Atkins, honestly, when you mentioned it. So I'm glad to hear that it was actually not too bad.
Yeah, it really wasn't. I mean, it was pretty low calorie. I think the lowest calorie plan started at 1,200. And I think nowadays that's kind of, pretty low. And I'm not by any means, qualified in nutrition. But I think, in my opinion, that's probably pretty low now.
Yeah,
But
it's definitely lower as far as like standards go, especially if you're weight training and things like that. I mean, everybody's
yeah,
different depending on height and weight and all that stuff. But that's cool. It's cool that it's that one sounded like it was a little bit more on the right track than a lot of other diets I've heard of. So
yeah. I mean, I liked it. I did it. It worked for me, so I can't say too much bad about it.
yeah, absolutely. So now going more into what you do now as a running coach, what exactly is a run coach and how can you help a runner improve or what can you help them like improve on?
Yeah. So a run coach, very simply, is someone that helps someone reach running related goals. So in my role and what I do is talk to a client at length about what their current fitness looks like, their current lifestyle, what their goals are, their training history, and then work with them to develop a plan that's safe and will get them to the goal that they want to reach. So within that, I mean, there's unlimited number of things that can be improved upon. Things like fancy words, VO2 max, lactate threshold, running economy, things like that you hear a lot. Fancy ways of saying using oxygen better. And that comes with kind of a training plan that's progressive, that starts with a very big base. So running a lot of miles or running a lot of time on your feet, as we say, building things up slowly so that as you can kind of layer on all your speed work and get faster and longer distance running, you have something to kind of build upon it.
So what does the difference look like for someone who is not currently active but would like to get into running compared to someone who is currently active who wants to start running? So they're not running now, but they're like weightlifting, but they want to like start running.
Yeah. So for someone who's brand new to any activity, the very first thing I would do is say to get a good pair of running shoes. If you have never owned a pair of running shoes before and you don't know what you should even start with, you can go to any running specialty store and most of them will guide you in the right direction. Something that they'll do is called a gait analysis. And so they'll watch you walk or run on a treadmill. They'll watch your foot patterns, your movement patterns, kind of see how your foot lands. And they'll be able to then recommend a shoe that would be appropriate for you. So that would be definitely the very first thing. And that's for any runner, no matter who you are, you should have a good pair of running shoes. And then I would say to just start with walks. So small, 2 to 3 days per week, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, somewhere in there. Do that consistently. And then once you've built up to about 30 minutes of a comfortable walk, you can go ahead and try some running. And that would probably look something like run for 30 seconds, walk for a minute, and then repeat that for 20 minutes. And then you would just progress from there depending on what your goals are.
Absolutely. That's very cool. So I know here in Florida, the place that I would recommend for people to go for that gait analysis is like Fit to Run. They are like my go-to. I've done the gait analysis with them. I love seeing when like you stand on it and then it shows you the pressure points in your feet. So that helps you figure out what kind of shoes to get. I used Saucony for a while. I know so many people who run in the On shoes and Hoka's. What are your favorites?
Well, I'm like a shoe nerd and I have probably a pair in every brand. Currently I'm wearing 2 different kinds of ASICS shoes. I have a pair of Brooks shoes that I like for just kind of my easy, like everyday mileage. One thing I'll say about shoes is that they change, yearly or so. And so if you have worn a pair of shoes and you're like, oh, those shoes never work for me. Like I hate Brooks. They never work for me. Go ahead and try them again. If you're looking for a new shoe, because they will change. And sometimes it's for the better, sometimes not. Sometimes they change your favorite shoe and you're, scrambling for something new. But try not to, try different things, try different brands, different kinds of shoes.
Totally. I remember I was wearing Saucony. It was a certain pair of Saucony shoes and I wore them. I wore the crap out of them. Like I wore them. I think I bought one pair, wore those out, bought the same exact pair. They hadn't changed the formula or anything yet. It was great. And then they slowly changed like a millimeter or something on like the lift. They changed the floor pad of like the shoe. And I hated it. And I was like, it's the same shoe. Like, why does it feel so bad? And I was so upset. And then I went to Brooks. And now I run in ultras, but that's a whole nother story. But I hate when they change it.
I know.
So I saw that you're certified through the Road Runners Club of America. I'd never heard of that organization before, and I would love to learn more about it. So can you tell me a little bit about that organization?
Yeah, so they're pretty big and well known in the running space. They provide support for race clubs, race directors, run clubs, running coaches. What stood out to me about their run coaching certification, among a lot of others that I had looked into, was that they actually offered like an interactive class. So most of the certifications will send you a textbook or send you reading material. You read through a certain section, you go, you take a quiz. And then once you've done that, for the 10 different sections, you go and you take your final. And so I actually went through a certification originally that was like that, which was great. And I got a lot of kind of base knowledge, but then it doesn't really help you with like the what if things. And there's a lot of what if when you're coaching people, a lot of different situations come up. So having kind of the live experience with the instructors, there were 35 other people in the class so that we could all kind of talk and collaborate. So it kind of was a little bit more intensive, I guess is the best way to say it.
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah, like I said, I've never heard of that organization, but I think it's cool that, like you said, it's interactive and that they provide those like kind of one-off like situations that happen. I know I'm an exercise physiologist, and my certification is more like around clinical things. So a lot of people get a personal training certification where it's just working with the general population. And so kind of like you, like I get those clients who have, edema, or who are, pregnant, or who have like these other things that take just a little bit extra knowledge. So it's nice to find those certifications that just give you that little extra edge. I love that.
For sure. Yeah. And they're there even for follow up. So the original course that I took, I probably could send them an email and say, hey, I have some questions, and like they might get back to me. But the RRCA, the Roadrunners Club of America, they are like very hands on. Like I know for sure that I can reach someone either through their Facebook or through the phone or an email. So it just feels like a lot more support than a lot of the other will offer.
That is so cool and so necessary, because there's always we always need support as trainers and as coaches, and to have the people that taught us is like to be those guides is so important for sure.
Yep.
So what do you see are some of the biggest challenges that runners face when like they're preparing for a race?
I think starting off, one of the biggest things is that people don't really know what to do or how to get started, or they're not finding a plan that's suitable for their needs specifically. So I always obviously will say hire a coach, because they can help navigate and tell you where to go. But if you need to find a plan, a Google search plan, I would say find something that meets you where you currently are. So if you are currently running 15 miles a week and your longest run is 5 miles, and you find a marathon plan that's saying your first week should be 25 miles that week and 10-mile long run, that's not the plan for you. It's going to be too aggressive. So I think it can be confusing, because someone might Google this plan and say, oh, it's an 18-week marathon plan and I have 18 weeks, so I must be able to do this plan. And that's not always the case. So I think that's one of the first challenges. And then a big one this time of year, and especially here in the South, is training in the summer. Not only mentally, but physically challenging. So we might not like running in the heat, so it's harder to get out the door. Physically, it's more demanding. It feels harder. Our paces are going to slow, sometimes significantly, which can make us think we're losing fitness or we're getting slower. And it's definitely not the case. Your body recognizes effort. It doesn't recognize pace. So if you're running a 10-minute per mile pace in the winter and a 12-minute per mile pace in the summer, if it's the same effort, it's the same effort. So you're still getting the same adaptations. You're getting the same stimulus that you want out of that run. It's just going to be a little bit slower. And so it's something that's kind of hard to take into account sometimes. And then that brings logistical challenges, sometimes of carrying fluid with you, electrolytes if you need them, if you're out on a longer run.
Totally. That actually makes me feel a lot better, because I've been running since like high school. I'm from Wisconsin, so I'm used to running in very like just mid, just average weather, nothing hot, nothing humid. And then I moved down to Florida and I tried to run, and I was training for a marathon. Like I think I was training like end of summer, during the fall into winter kind of, and it was horrible. I was like, I'm the worst runner on the planet. I can't breathe. I'm so slow. But you're absolutely right. Like the effort was very similar. I mean, my pace ended up being exactly the same once the race came around. So I think that's a good thing to keep in mind that a lot of people don't think of. And maybe it even prevents people from running in the heat, because they just think that it's, that they're not as good or not at the same level that they are during run season when it's cooler out in Florida.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I know it's personal preference. Some people, like me, truly hate running in the summertime in Florida. I think it's the worst unless I'm up at 5 a.m., which I'm not going to do, or run at 7 p.m., which I'm also not going to do. So I'm just going to pick the treadmill in the sand during the summertime. But I think that's really a really good reminder, especially for the people in the South, like you said. So that was kind of the preparation for a race. So what should runners focus on, like right after they complete their race, whether it's their first one, their 10th, and completion, meaning this can be within minutes, days, weeks, or months after they are finished with their race? What kind of things should they focus on?
So the very first thing, even before you finish your race, as you're crossing the finish line, is smile and look up and take just a second to not pause your watch, because your race photo, if it looks like this, is not as nice as if it looks like this,
So true.
Yeah. So take the extra second to wait. Your watch will be fine. It will still be there and you will still have the same time, even if your watch says it's a second longer. But then immediately you want to rehydrate. So like grab whatever it is that they are giving you, water, Gatorade, whatever they have there at your race. And within 30 to 60 minutes or so, you want to get in some protein and carbs. Carbs are usually pretty easy to come by at the end of a race. They'll hand you a banana or like a granola bar, something like that. Protein can be a little bit more of a challenge. If dairy is okay for you, some races will have like a chocolate milk kind of thing, which is a great option. And I know some of our races around here will have like Chick-fil-A or like a bowl of chicken and rice, and which is odd to me after a race, but it's an option. If you have like a friend or family member there, someone spectating, make something beforehand. So like a shake that has some protein and some carbs in it. That way, you have exactly what you need when you're done. And then in the days after, if you have a coach or even if it's just a friend, can be helpful, debrief your race. So talk to this person about what went well that you might want to carry to another training cycle. What did you struggle with, or what was a challenge that maybe needs more attention the next time? And then rest. And this is very independent. It depends on your effort level of the race, the length of the race. This can be days to weeks. There's no rush in coming back. A lot of the damage that you do to your body in a race is done at the cellular level. And so it's not something you're going to feel. So you might wake up one day and be like, I feel great. Like my legs aren't sore anymore. Like, let me go run. And it's not always the case. So you want to give yourself time to physically and mentally kind of decompress from that race. And then once you're ready to start again, just start slow.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll say so I've only done one marathon. And when I did that marathon, I took a nice 3-year break. I will say COVID came right after that marathon, like close after. So I think I had a little bit of an excuse, but I felt like very, very tired and burnt out of running. And I don't know if that's typical, if you've experienced that with like your marathons. What did it look like when you ran your marathons? Like, did you go to like lower races, like 5Ks, 10Ks, or did you take a break? What did that look like for you?
For me personally, I ran my first marathon in 2015. And I had no time goal, which is something I would suggest to anyone taking on their first marathon, is try to take the time out of it. Like just completing it is a huge accomplishment. Mm-hmm. So just one suggestion to anyone looking to run their first marathon. But because of that, I ran it at a pretty slow pace, slow for me. And so not that it didn't take me a long time to recover, because it certainly did from my first marathon. But I think it was helpful in my recovery in that I didn't necessarily have that burnout feeling. I followed a very conservative plan. Like my longest run was 17 or 18 miles, where you have some that go up to like 22, yes. Which is not always necessary. And then after that, I ran 2 half marathons back to back.
Wow.
Which was a huge mistake because I ended up with an IT band injury.
Oh my gosh, no.
That came and gone for like a good 4 years and prevented me from running any distances. So I was still able to do like 5Ks, 10Ks, that kind of stuff, but like could not break through to anything like really longer than that. And so from that experience, and that's a lot of why I wanted to become a run coach, is just, that's not the right way to do it. And so I learned the hard way.
Yeah. Wow. Cause you're still doing, I know I had posted something on my Instagram asking what people were doing for movement. And you said you were foam rolling and working on some of the patellar tendon stuff, or was it IT band?
This one is posterior tibialis tendinitis.
Okay. Yeah. I know. I feel like as runners, it's always something sometimes. Like it's, depending on, whether it's depending on the mileage, depending on the recovery. Are you a proponent of foam rolling, Theragunning, things like that?
So yes, although I will say that I would like to personally do some more research on them. I think there's like a lot of conflicting stuff out there on what it can actually do and what it does.
Mm-hmm.
So my current stance on it is if you like it, do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have seen a lot of more recent studies that are saying that like stretching, like a static stretch after a run is really not doing anything for you long term. I have a like 10-minute static stretch routine that I do after my runs that I love. It gives me 10 minutes to kind of cool down and just lay on my mat and like, it feels good. Totally. Is it doing anything for me long term? Maybe not, but I like it and I enjoy it. So I'm going to keep doing it. I don't think it's hurting me. So yeah.
Yeah, and if it feels good for your body, I mean, yeah, unless, I mean, and that's the other thing too, is there's a lot of like people are super into running right now. Like I see, especially in Tampa and St. Pete, like a lot of run groups, which is amazing. Love that people are getting out to run. But there's also so much like research that maybe hasn't been done. I mean, running's been going on forever, so I'm sure that there's research. Not sure. I'm sure they're working on like more recent research, but the warm ups, the cool downs, all that stuff. And you look at everyone who's just going out for a run. Are they warming up properly? Are they fueling properly? All those things. So I think that's definitely if like people want to get into running, I think looking into what's going to be best for them in their body, because I'm assuming it's different for everyone, right? Like the fueling, the warming.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally. So
for sure.
Yeah.
And people have different priorities, depending on what your goals are and what, if you just want to go out and run a couple miles every week, then, you go ahead and do that. You're probably not going to need to go buy gels and like all these things. You want to start running, over 2 hours, half marathons, then that is something that you're going to have to focus on. So
absolutely. And I think that's where a run coach comes in handy too, because you can help kind of guide people through that, and even, helping find a warm up and cool down routine that works for them, and just, helping them find. Yeah, because everybody's different. That's why it's so good to have a coach, I think, because they can see things, like they can see things that they might not be able to see. So what about strength training do runners need to know?
As runners, like we love to run. And so we think that that's like the only thing that we should be doing when we're training for something. But strength training shows improvements in running economy, muscle imbalances. So we can find things that are maybe weaker on one side, or something's not working quite correctly, and we can work to fix that and strengthen that. And so that way, when you're on the run, you're not overcompensating somewhere else. So it's not necessarily, we're not saying like it's injury prevention, but it is kind of indirectly going to keep you safer while you're running. In our 30s, we start to lose muscle mass, which is kind of a scary thought. And so we have to work like a little bit harder, even just to maintain it. So it's important for that aspect too. And I think it's something like 50 to 80% of runners are going to be injured every year, which is huge and a very high amount. And actually, this reminded me, your podcast with Kylie, you guys talked about injury in dancers. And as she was talking, I was thinking how many parallels there are to running, because it's repetitive movement. It's the same movement over and over. Our bodies like variety. They like to move in different planes of motion. And so things like strength training, cross training are super important to complement your running. And it's so neglected. I mean, a runner looks at a training plan, and if I put 2 days of strength training on there and they don't feel like doing one day, what's the first thing that's going to go out the window? It's the strength training.
It 100% is. It's so funny too, especially I see it in men a lot of times, is they will want to train upper body, which is great because there's benefits to training upper body with running. But it's getting them to do legs, right? And trying to get the strength training in the legs. Some runners understand it, and some are kind of just trying to get behind it now. But especially when we look at even like plyometric movements, like lateral, side to side, rotation, things to help the knees and ankles stay safe, I think is so important too. It's like you said, as runners, like we step off the curb funny, like it could be over for a while.
Yep.
Unless we're able to bounce back from that, because our ankles and our knees and our hips are strong, and it goes all the way up the chain. And that's the thing in the episode with Kylie, that, I mean, I've been a runner for so long, and I have so many injuries, whether it's because I didn't strength train when I was younger and was doing it, or I, didn't prepare, wasn't strength training or doing the right training plan while I was running, kind of in tandem with that. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because the strength training for runners is so important. And I think it really gives a runner an advantage if they're strength training, because their muscles are stronger, they've got more power, so they can be they can improve their time just based on the strength training alone, I think. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Yeah. 100% agree. And
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be a lot. So I think that's kind of where some of the, like, I don't want to strength train comes from in a training plan. So you're obviously, like, to get better at running, you need to run. That's the primary focus of your training. But, 2 days a week, 20 minutes, like, it can just be a quick thing,
Yeah.
just to support your running. And then if you want to, in an off season when you're not training and focus a little bit more on strength training, then you do it a little bit longer, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, whatever fits for your goals. But yeah, it does, a little goes a long way.
Absolutely. I'm even thinking like the band workouts, like just using a resistance band, like a loop band, that'll just go around your knees,
Mm-hmm.
feet, doing things like knee drives or, just squats, because then that's going to help, it's going to help your glutes, it's going to help your hips. And I think a lot of times we neglect like the hip flexors as runners, they'll always feel tight. Like you said, this really does have a lot of parallels to the dance episode. Because we're using a lot of those same muscles, and it's just, we're stretching certain things, not strengthening other things. And so it all kind of comes full circle with this sport as well. And I think that's why I'm so messed up, because I danced and I ran. And that's why I like
There you go.
I think that makes so much sense. So what I'm hearing from you is that someone who's like currently running 2 days a week of like short strength training is probably enough just to kind of get them to a place where they're more stable and that they can really be more protected and maybe even enhance their running.
Yep, absolutely.
Amazing. I love that. Well, thanks for bringing that up. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is important for runners, any sport, but for running specifically. All right. So, and part of my show, Absolution, where we talk about something that we want to ditch from the fitness industry, something that can be toxic, something that just doesn't jive with everyone, something that we can absolve and free ourselves from all the guilt of. What do you think, Jen? What are we absolving today?
So we are getting rid of the guilt of missing a training run or taking a rest day.
Ooh, expand on that. I love that.
So I think when we sit down, we get this training plan, we see however many weeks it is, and it's X amount of runs per week. And, we get so focused on the individual run. So like today I have a speed workout and I have to hit exactly this pace for each of these 10 reps. And like, if I don't do it, then like the workout was a failure, and that's just not true. And so there's going to be days where you might wake up and you don't feel well and you need to take a rest day. Or mentally, you're just not there, and it would be more beneficial for you to rest or move that workout somewhere else. And that's okay. And that's sometimes necessary. It will be more important to do that and to take care of yourself physically and mentally than it is to push through something. And that's not to say that, we should always just wake up and be like, I don't feel like doing this today. And then like, we're just not going to do it. So there's, a little bit of where having a coach will kind of help you with that. Decide, is this something that I should just move to a different day, or do I just skip it and move forward if that, makes more sense? Like that's something that I help athletes with a lot. But you're not losing fitness if you miss a day, if you take an extra rest day, or even just your regular programmed rest day. Like it's there for a reason. Your body is going to build its strength when it's recovering. So it's not always just the workout that is providing all the stimulus that you need. It's taking that rest day to kind of give your body time to, take in that stimulus. And so don't feel guilty if you need to take time off. If you need to take a week off, 2 weeks off, like it's fine. Like you are not going to lose fitness. If you do, you're going to build it back really quickly. Like life happens. We do this because it's fun and we like it. And well, most of us, I don't think most of us are professional athletes.
Yeah, I think it's super important because a lot of times someone can even start to not enjoy the running because they feel like they have to continue and push through kind of those feelings of, oh, I want to rest, I want to take a day off, but then feeling guilty because they can't. So I think that is, that's amazing. We're going to absolve that today. And honestly, a lot of times what we see with people who have a goal. So like in episode 2, when Kylie was talking about her pistol squats, she's talked about when she took a month off of doing pistol squat practice. And then when she came back to do it the next month, she was able to do a pistol squat. All it took was that time in recovery. And we do that a lot of times, when people are practicing their pull-ups, when they're doing different exercises and they're finding that they're really stuck in one spot, allowing that time to just take a break, work on other things and come back to it. You kind of have a renewed sense, renewed strength, and then it's a little bit easier to fall into. So
yep.
I think that that's amazing. I think that as a run coach, I think that's such a rewarding job that you can have to really help someone find that love for running and help, make them the best runner that they can be while they're enjoying the sport that they're doing, and enjoying the nature around them, if they're running in nature or if they're running on a treadmill. I mean, it's super great for the mental health. So just know that the work that you're doing is amazing, and and super fulfilling. I hope you feel fulfilled every day.
I'm so excited about it. You have no idea.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. That's amazing. Well, Jenn, if people want to learn more about you and your business, and run coaching, or any running questions in general, where can people find you?
So I'm on Instagram at the Starting Line Run Coaching, and my website is thestartinglineruncoaching.com. And you can just shoot me a message on Instagram. My website has a spot to schedule a call, just for a free 30-minute quick informational call if you have any questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jenn. I'm going to put that information in the show notes so people can reach out to you if they have any other questions. And thank you so much for joining me, Jenn.
Thank you so much, Abby. It was really nice to see you again.
You too. We'll talk soon.